You're not there. You're in Los Angeles. Here we are today. This episode of Advanced Pretend is so cool because we are sitting here with Amy Ringholz, and we're sitting in her natural environment as an artist. You can see behind me. Got some wonderful examples of Amy's work. How are you doing, Amy?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for saying yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and Amy and I have known each other for a little while. We got to know each other better starting a couple of years ago, I think. I came out here to the Tetons in the Jackson Hole neighborhood of the United States and interviewed Amy for Artist Magazine. And I'll never forget the title of the piece. It was called How the West Was Won.
Awesome.
And I love that because you are originally from Ohio and you transplanted yourself into this neighborhood 30 years ago?
20
years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And upon arriving, I mean, you were not a full-time artist and you worked in housekeeping at a dude ranch.
It's all true. It's all true story.
Yeah, I'm just fact checking it right in front of her so I get it right. And I understand that you built your family of like fans and collectors starting in that role in housekeeping, that people would come regularly and then ask you about your art. Can you tell me a little bit about that, like establishing your foundation in that infancy of your practice out here?
Yeah, it was pretty magical looking back on it that I couldn't have planned something more perfectly without any intentions of that. But being from Ohio, we always vacationed in Georgia. So I had never really seen, the absolute beautiful drama of the West. Yeah. And getting opportunity to work outside of Yellowstone National Park at a dude ranch at age 25.
Wow.
Was huge for me. So I loaded up my Honda Civic with, can't fit much in there. And came out here, and I gotten into something that we still have today, which is a Miller Park art fair in Jackson Hole. We have it every summer. And I'd been accepted into the August show. So I was creating paintings while I wasn't cleaning cabins. And I put together about probably 30 paintings over the summer. And the guests would go to town from the dude ranch. They'd come to Jackson. They'd look for art. And they would find that they didn't see anything they really loved. And they'd come back to the ranch and buy my beginning paintings. I mean, it was just, I sold my first painting there for, I think, $500, and it felt like $5 million.
Yeah.
And
I love a story like that.
The clients then, they kept track of me for 20 years now, and they really were this kickoff start that I had no intention of knowing that would happen. So
right.
Not only did they get me going, because I was able to tell the galleries after that I'd sold so many pieces that summer. Is that good? And the galleries, of course, are like, let me take a look at these paintings. So, but also then they've followed me this whole time. They've come back and collected again. And they can just be a part of the story that they discovered my work first. So yeah. It's been a magical beginning.
Yeah.
And that all happened here in Jackson. And I felt like this was a great place for me to stay and grow, being that it's a small town.
Yeah.
And if I could find my way here, that I could branch out and build from Jackson. So that's been sort of my mission.
Right. And it's very apparent to me, having known you for a while and kind of understanding just like how you walk the talk of your life. This is very much your community, and you're very heavily committed to giving back in the smallest way that you can. But it's in such a big way, Amy, and that's all about the scholarship fund that you run for artists every year. Primarily driven to ensure that they have the right amount of supplies, right?
Yes.
Because supplies are expensive.
A paintbrush can be like $40.
Yeah, we can all afford a number 2 pencil.
That's right.
But you can't always work in graphite.
No, you can't.
You got to buy brushes and paint and canvas and wood panels and holy moly, all the stuff we see.
There's a lot of money.
Yeah.
On this table alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I enjoy that about you too, that you do have the idea to give back, because you know what it's like to struggle.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah, you do. touching on that for a second, I had this very cool mentor here in Jackson, and he believed that you should, work your town and contribute as a worker, and then also to contribute as someone who's involved in the community and volunteering basically, or giving back or bettering your town. And I was like, man, these two ideas, if everyone in the world had to do those two things in their place, what an amazing, world we could be in.
Right.
With part of your heart being in a volunteer place and part of your heart being in a place where I will contribute my body to work for,
to contribute to the community.
Exactly. To contribute.
Yeah. And Jackson Hole, in fact, I mean, I've gone over this a couple times with a handful of guests that I've invited from this area. It is a world-class art destination, and many people out west understand this. I don't know the broader sense of how that's understood kind of in just like the cultural landscape of America, but in general, if you're talking about the places to see art in the West, we're talking about Aspen and Scottsdale, and for sure Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And Amy is a part of that landscape. She is operating a gallery right off Town Square, which is a prime real estate, and it's such a lovely placement for all of your work. Easy to access it and walk in and see all of the great, vivid, amazing colors that you use. And Amy, am I correct in saying that you work in oil and ink primarily with some graphite?
Yes, I kind of found my voice using ink, and that developed into learning to paint with oil, which is very juicy and delicious. And I recommend it to all.
It's shiny.
It's just like,
it's some kind of like subtle pop. I point this out. Okay, so I work for Amy on the weekends, and one of my greatest pleasures recently is to talk to people about Amy's art. And I'm kind of like, don't you see the depth of this line right here? And that's actually ink. And look at how it kind of shines. And they back up and they're like, what? They understand how the two mediums are speaking to one another. It's something you kind of can't really place unless you know what you personally are using. Could be completely perceived as all oil.
Right.
But there is something about that ink.
Well, in trying to draw, let's back up to that. I did major in drawing. So I like to continue, in drawing, it's all about line. It's about value. It's about the movement of your hand, your arm. You do exercises where you're working out your arm. Yeah. To build this strength, this muscle. Sure. So the ink allowed me to, instead of continuously dip and paint, brush, dip, brush, dip, brush, the ink lets you take a whole bunch of ink up and then continuously make a line. So the line drawings, which you never pick up your pencil, we would practice those, which I still like.
I love that.
One line drawings. Nice. That's basically how I still draw. And that fluidity and that motion and that speed and that gesture can be captured in ink, and it cannot be captured in paint. So I had to use the materials that worked to speak my language.
Love it.
And that ended up being ink and oil, and then missing drawing. Because when you paint with ink and oil, the ink starts off as a beautiful moment. If you stay with like a sketch like feeling, I do that in some of my work. But the oil overpowers the ink. It's the main voice, and the ink is secondary. And I missed that line drawing because some of it gets covered up with the paint. So I went back to graphite on wood, where now the drawing is the main character.
I love the graphite.
And there's a light acrylic wash that I use to kind of enhance those line drawings. So I just really enjoy mixed medium, which I see as a giant trending. I wonder if they should have mixed media as a college degree at this point, because it is just about, what do you need to find to make the right thing happen. I'm currently in this moment right now that I want something that's not a pencil, it's too light, not charcoal, it's too brush awayable, but not a heavy, heavy black ink. Like, where is this next medium that sits in between them? And that's why the art of creation and creativity is constantly evolving, because you're searching for your tools
Right.
to
and
make
what,
what
and
you're trying
what
to say.
feels right to you. And
Yes.
like, how can I problem solve my way into
Yes.
knowing what to use next? Or
Exactly.
how to fill the gap.
Yeah.
And I remember in our interview, this is one of my favorite parts of the article for Artist Magazine, you said you go to art school to learn all the rules, and then you get out of art school and you break them. And I kind of want you to talk about that a little bit. I think that's what you were talking about, really.
Yeah.
And also, too, along with that, you explained to me that in college or, higher level learning for art, you weren't necessarily prescribed to a lot of color theory, that color is intuitive to you. And that's interesting to me, Amy, because your work is all about color.
Yeah, that's,
and so you, even in fact, if you had kind of maybe jabbed with some color theory, I suspect you would have jumped out of that and said, now I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, and you were already doing it, I think, right?
the color is fascinating because they teach you to draw and to paint first in black and white and gray hues because
For value
it's so
definition.
complex
Yeah.
to bring color in, to understand, what's this color going to do next to this one? What pulls it forward? What pushes it back? How do you keep it fresh? How do you not muddy it? How do you give it depth? How do you lighten it? How do you layer it? Color is its own animal.
Yeah.
And so that's really taught second. Now, because I was a drawing major, I only took one painting class in college. It's crazy. Lots of drawing.
Mhm.
And this gift of understanding color it's one of the gifts I was just inherently given.
Yeah.
Some people are very limited by their colors because they only understand how these 7 work together.
Mhm.
And then some are purists and they only use the primary colors and white
Wow.
and can make every color they want from that with like dedicated
Amazing
study.
Mhm.
And I've treated color like, if anyone's going to use color in the world, should it not be the artist? Right?
Yes.
So I love being I don't limit myself with really any rules. And that allows, luckily, I understand how this is going to work next to this to be able to create, hopefully, what I'm going for is fresh oil paintings with just this inherent study, understanding of color. So when people sit down at the piano and they can jam with the guy next to them, like, I don't get it. I don't get it. They don't talk to each other. They just keep playing. I got like a key of C. What the hell is that? So, but they just get that they know what they're doing on the piano and they're playing 12 minutes later and it still sounds good. Okay. I don't understand that, but I do understand color like that.
Like the intuitive nature,
This
just being able to feel your
intuitive,
way through it and know what's next in some way, or just following your gut.
It's following the color, allowing different colors to be my leads in different paintings. I'm just gifted with that, and it's very lucky because a lot of color theory is usually studied.
Oh, for sure. And
Yes.
then repetition,
Yes.
right? It's like
Yes.
insane.
Understanding it.
And so I brought along a copy of Makoto Fujimura's Art and Faith, the theology of making.
I love it.
And he is an artist and an author. And he believes that we can see the redemptive acts of God through the lens of the creative process. And he says, for an artist to be an effective messenger of hope, we must begin by trusting our inner void, an inner intuition that speaks into the vast wastelands of our time.
And we just switched to heavy, everybody.
Heavy.
This is like totally heavy right now.
We went from like color theory to divine prophecy about creating, which I've said it before. I do believe that creating is a matter of channeling the divine in some way, because we were born into it as children. We came into this world all new, and these fresh eyes, brought us in as natural creators from our creator, right?
Yes.
And so what could be the most divine thing to be doing? Creating.
And then what's really cool about that is that the divinity of what we're looking at to paint.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, he's the best artist there is. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
The creator, great name. He has the eye and the magic and the creativity for every bird to do every motion of wing, of song, of dance, beyond anything we can ever dream up. And how fabulous and perfect is that? So as the artist, not only try to mimic is such an interesting sentence, but to try just to take the time to look.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say mimic, I would say exalt, because, I think anytime you try to depict nature, which in and of itself is our divine inspiration to be in this world, nature is the motivator to keep looking, Amy. I do completely agree with you. You focus a lot on wildlife, but in fact, you're outside and look at the neighborhood you're living in. I mean, people come from all over the world just to see the majestic landscape that Amy and I are so lucky to be a part of and be in the same neighborhood sharing. And so her voice is a part of this amazing kind of community of artists here in the Tetons, and lucky enough to look and have a tangible kind of experience in the way of what God's divinity is made of, which is trees and sky and birds. And
I just believe, just getting outside in it. We all kind of know this, that there's such a lift.
Yeah.
And I just saw this little kind of pictures in New York City this morning, just kind of feeling the New Yorkness of it all, which I do love New York and all of its wonderfulness of adventure. But the feeling of intensity and tightness and buildings and people and noise.
Yeah.
And then to have like this incredible, Wyoming's least populated state. Like we're out here. We are out here.
Yeah.
It is very dramatic landscape and weather.
And there's something to be said for Western isolation.
And we are isolated.
That's what this is kind of about too, out here.
Yep. And so it's another beautiful place to be an artist, because guess what? You need to kind of be alone a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're ever going to make anything.
True.
That's not easy in itself. It's getting to be alone.
Right. Now, wait, let's back way up, because there's something about you that I want the audience to know. And that is that Amy decided in the first grade on career day that she wanted to be an artist.
Yeah. Good or bad.
Look at what she's doing.
I know.
First grade, goal setting, all the way to the finish line, people.
Definitely an achiever.
Focus, laser focus.
My personality test always is first and foremost an achiever.
A+.
And I mean, Adele has this song out. Like I didn't have time maybe to explore further. Maybe there's this beautiful balance that some people are still exploring. I get that. And I feel for that. And I also am a little jealous of that you're still looking for your thing.
Yeah.
And I knew my thing inherently. My father was an artist. So it was around me. In the beauty in which he moved his pencil, pen, paint, his ideas came to paper. I mean, I was just enthralled with that.
That's so great.
And I didn't have it, but I knew it was magic coming out of the end of his paintbrush.
Okay.
And I think I wanted to go find that. But luckily I've been able to do a lot of diverse things in my life, but also like I haven't done that much exploring. I've really explored here in the paint, in the canvas, and grown up. When I look at my work 20 years ago, I was a kid, and it looks like it. And that's the journey. That's kind of cool that it's all documented. Yeah,
I love that too. And I do love to talk about artists about what they were like as a creative child. And so, you have one sibling, and he is a musician, Brian, right?
Yes.
And so, what were you like? What did you create? How many years apart are you, by the way?
We're 7, so we're a little different areas. My father is an artist. His father, my stepfather, is a musician.
Nice.
But what was kind of fabulous about all of that is that we both chose difficult paths. Kudos to our parents for hanging in there.
Right.
But we were able to encourage each other, and I think that's the relationship that not everyone has.
Right.
From their people closest to them. It's very hard to understand what goes into this, because it's everything you've got.
Yeah.
There's no time off. It's like writing.
It is. Yes.
There's no hours on this. There's no you're finished. There's no wrap it up for the day and relax. There's none of that.
I was thinking this morning, Amy, because you and I have talked about this before. You've asked me some great questions about my process that actually have really helped me, because not very many people ask me, and I appreciate that. But this morning I was like, is today your day off? Like, can you have like a Saturday today?
No.
We're going to go interview Amy, and that doesn't feel like work. So maybe a little, but no, wait, you have a deadline and that's due tomorrow. So keep going, Jen. And so I did, I just interviewed with Matt, my producer, and we talked about how I came from a corporate background, and it has taken me years to shed the clock watcher mentality, this is how your week is, and these 2 days are where you rest, and then you're on for this amount of time every single day, and we control that. And that's not my life anymore. And I finally kind of don't miss it. There are certain things about stability that I do miss, but I don't miss that. And you are a night owl.
Yeah.
You go all night. And what about the rest of your household? I mean, you're out here creating in a special place, which is reserved just for all that. But you do have a family in the house.
True.
including a newborn.
They're all tucked in.
Including a newborn infant. And
can you tell?
Yeah, right. Amy. You know, we should do facials after this. Let's go get a massage.
I think you're in a relationship with your passion.
Yeah.
And it is very intimate,
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot of time. It's emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It takes priority sometimes. And you have to be in a relationship that can try to respect that and try to understand it. And so the way I've managed when I was single a long time, but I would go out for drinks, but I'd only have one, and everybody else would go home and go to bed, and I went straight to work. And that's the only way I've found that I've been able to make a career out of this, is that during the day it involves a lot of business, and at night that's all finally checked off, and I can tap into the creativity part.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Newborn, I'm gonna screw that up. Okay. Because there is no energy at the end of the day to tap into.
I bet.
So I'm really working through this massive life change that my nighttime has been, I don't know, it's gone. My entire way of being successful is now gone.
It's been wiped away.
It's goodbye.
By a tiny body.
By a tiny, cute,
she's adorable, I must say.
Stinky thing.
We're talking baby Gap adorable.
It's a cute baby. Thank goodness.
Child.
Thank goodness. I don't know how you do it if your kid's not cute. I don't get it.
But yet, okay, so
anyways,
this is how driven Amy is. I'm going to give Amy a little perspective on herself for a moment. In the past year, you have completed a mural at the Jackson Hole Airport, which is one of the only airports in the country that is situated in a national park, or near a national park. It's like on the boundary. And people from all over the world fly into this airport. Now, Amy's work is at the Jackson Hole Airport. And Amy is now a children's book author. She has released Rabbit and the Crown of Dreams, which is a tale close to her heart, but she was able to integrate Wyoming folklore into the story, kind of, because it's the story about how the jackalope got its antlers, according to Amy Ringholz.
We're all wondering.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mystery. Not anymore. And so, gosh, like this mural and the book and the baby and woof, lady.
I threw Halloween for the entire town of Jackson.
Yeah.
It's been a big year.
Yeah. She likes to throw parties too.
I do enjoy the creativity behind a party or an event as well.
Okay, so remember in school when we had to make the Valentine's Day box to get the Valentine's, what did yours look like?
They were 3D. You know, there were things sticking off of there. I'm sure Dad helped me. But
I would love to see that.
I'm sure it went into a mouth. you know. I'm sure the opening was a mouth of something.
Love it.
A dog, a cat.
And do you have any fond memories of dioramas?
Dude, I want to make dioramas right now, every day.
Right now.
Every day. I'm like, why am I not just making dioramas?
Right. Why do I compulsively want to save a shoebox?
Why does diorama have such a great word?
This is fun to make.
Why isn't it just like a box with some layers?
Oh my God, we need to assign each other dioramas.
I just think I might close up the gallery and just make dioramas and just sell those forever.
It is an unexplored territory of art that we need.
Right? Is there a diorama gallery?
Present.
No.
Yeah, we need to have a diorama show.
Listen,
I'm telling you.
don't put anything past me.
So, diorama tangent aside.
I'll let you know.
So the book, the thing I like about the book most, Amy, is that you took your art to a different place by actually depicting action in your work. As the audience can see kind of behind us, you're really into contemporary wildlife portraiture.
True.
And so the backgrounds are, kind of meant to make that composition pop in a way. But now in this book, there's landscapes, and this is one of the most popular images, I think. At any rate, she's got action going on, and she did, in fact, write the story. And it took you 5 years total, and you did the art last. So you really were working on those words for
a
good long time.
This, to all of those out there that believe writing a children's story is simple, and they just whip it out over the weekend. It's just not that way.
I don't want to stop you from springboarding off your own enthusiasm, but she's completely correct.
No.
That is exactly right, Amy. It's just not.
It's definitely a labor of love, I'm sure, for anyone that's working on a book. There's so many layers to actually writing and illustrating something and completing a project. For me, it's like a show of 14 pieces, which is what the book's made up of. And I was, instead of a little more fine artist, I was illustrator. And so, as an illustrator, you're just depicting a lot more storyline.
Yes.
And it was fun. And also, like, in this divinity subject, that I managed to like create these 14 pieces in like a wave. I was on a roll.
Nice. Yes.
Then to be like, well, 17 of them didn't work out. That's just not the way it went down.
Yeah.
2 of them didn't make the book, and I switched them up. But I was feeling something, and I was going for it wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel that in an artist, and you can feel it in the book.
Mm-hmm.
When an artist is enjoying themselves making their work, you know it.
Yeah.
When they are not, you know it.
Right.
So there's a transparency there in the process and the emotion and the vibe. And I'm telling so many stories with the book. I told my autobiography of following a dream, which is to me like the thing I talked about.
Yeah.
And then I related it to where I am with the jackalope. It's Wyoming's state mystical creature.
Yes, the official mythical creature of Jackson, or of Wyoming, rather. Yes.
And then I also included this nod to the Tetons in Jackson Hole by putting the mountains in the book without mentioning them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that as well, that it's just a little love letter to people who get to live here or visit here. But it's not like this is only for this area. This is for everyone.
Right.
And then I also really tried to make the book for an adult.
Yes.
Disguised as a children's book.
Yeah, I like the allegorical nature of it. And I have explained to people as they stop into the gallery that this is not, it was designed for age range, probably from 3 to 7 or 3 to 8, but ultimately you can give it to a college graduate.
That's what
or a middle-aged person who is feeling a little lost, maybe.
That's for all. Yeah, there's lessons in there that I've learned and that I've taught when I've gone back to actually lecture. And one thing is I wished I'd heard these lessons earlier.
Yeah.
And so I was really about kind of getting an adult ideas to a younger person, just let them think about it. And as a 3rd grader, as I talk about a page and ask, what do you think this is about when when he's in the fox den?
Mhm.
And the kids think, and they're like, you have to be patient. And when you're following your dream, and I'm like, yes, that is it.
That's right. And
You're right.
I'm opening up that
Yes.
Fox page because it's actually my favorite just because of what it says. But also I love the tightness, the warmness of the depiction, how tight they are together. Here they are. And so he, as the rabbit is traveling across to his destination, he encounters many animals along the way, and then he winters with a fox family, and to stay safe. And the season was long, but there was plenty to do. Time on your own is when you become you. That's my favorite. And I swear I get a little bit choked up every time I read that line.
One of my favorite lines of the book.
It's one of my favorites. And it is about, like, Amy was referring to earlier, the solitude of creativity, what it takes and dedication and passion, and, sacrificing a lot of time, to what makes you happy. And I actually think too, Amy, that what you were just saying about how you can tell when an artist or a creator isn't really having that much fun doing what, and I think that has to do with if their original voice is not coming out, if there's something about their work that isn't quite right, and you say to yourself, it could be better if blah, blah. I mean, just as a fan, not as another artist, and not as a critic, but if like me, you enjoy looking at art a lot, and you could say to yourself, wow, that person has talent, but there could be something else, And so I feel like that something else, it always has something to do with being original on your own and not trying to imitate. And I think that imitation is a great form of flattery. And when you are working as an artist, you should copy people for the exercise of learning skill set and understanding also what you would do in that copy to make it your own. You know what I mean? But don't you think originality is the hardest thing? Like to rise above the fray and have your work seen. What's that about, Amy? Is it about originality?
I feel like
what is it?
There's nothing wrong with looking at the masters and copying their work, because the learning process is massive there.
Right.
You're understanding all kinds of parts of composition and color and design.
And even Van Gogh copied Malay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but when you are putting your own voice out there and you create something that succeeds and you put your name on that, or you put your price tag on that, that's the best you can feel about what you're doing. If you're actually putting out your own originality, feeling good about it, succeeding with it, that is so much more valuable than copying something really well.
Yeah.
And
true.
So I'm a fan of expressionism.
Yes.
The most, because you don't have time to get tight and copy perfectly, which I think, little kids are expressionists.
Yes.
They're just going straight from the feeling and emotion and what they have in front of them to creation.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to do, even though I'm old now and I know too much. And I don't drop paint as easily as they do. I'm close. But that originality. Yeah. And that's how I think you find yourself to being known or notable or collected in a museum, is you're the first to create your work.
Right.
And I give a lot of kudos to those that you have to fight to find that, because it's not easy usually.
Right.
But it is a pursuit worth pursuing.
Sure. And you have been collected by a couple of museums. Got some really wonderful milestones in your art career, Amy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No,
not easy getting in a museum. So I'm in the Booth Museum, the Western Art Booth Museum in Atlanta.
Wow.
Thank you. I'm very
Booth Museum.
And working on Jackson, but we just I just appreciate that, hey, somebody sees you, put your name with your voice and your work, and that feels like the way to go.
Right.
In the art genre.
Right. And you are all about, fostering the artistic voice. You've got the scholarship fund, and every single event Amy throws, I think if she had her druthers, there would be a handcraft on the table, whether it be for adults or children.
Heck yeah. Because creating, being a maker, using your hands,
Yes.
some people really have gotten away from that.
Yes.
And it feels wonderful
Yeah.
for people who cook, you play the piano,
Yeah.
you write, you draw. You are using your tools and your hands to create.
Right. And you're using your neuro pathways, and you're carving neural pathways, and you're changing your brain chemistry by creating. And I really think people are fooled into this sad conception that creativity takes too much time in a world like ours, and it is a slow thing to do. Even making a meal is a slow thing to do. Yeah. I love to cook, but I know the charm of takeout. What am I, stupid? Right? You want to take shortcuts when you can, but it is so rewarding to invest time and to actually let go of that preconception that it is not time well spent.
Yeah, it's a gift to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, what a great way to say it,
yeah.
Amy. A gift to yourself to create. Yeah. To carve out the time to create. And don't say, I don't have time. You have to make time.
That's right.
Because it's not going to just appear.
And I usually drag people to the table, but then they are lost in their own little lovely world and probably happier than they've been in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's good to, try to foster that.
Yeah, I love
with
that.
my events and all kinds of things, scholarships and with kids. And I always want them to be making alongside me.
Yes.
It's a great environment. The time on your own is when you become you idea.
Yes.
It's just that we don't spend nearly enough time kind of with a notebook and a window and a pen, because there's a lot going on inside all of us. And we're so influenced by everything around us that the journal writing, I just think you can't write too much. If you can find that kind of time to give yourself, you really figure out like what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's a way of purging. If you are trying to develop a better coping mechanism for anything that might be happening to you, I think especially longhand writing, I can't recommend it enough. And that is another way of kind of activating your brain a certain way. Like, yes, you can type a journal out. Please do not say, I'm not writing a journal, I type. Well, then type a journal. But longhand writing is another way of like creating. And that's also being abandoned. Handwriting is
yeah.
I got an award in the 3rd grade for my handwriting.
I bet you did. Good job.
And it doesn't matter anymore, Amy. No. But time on your own was when you become you, and when you spend time with your thoughts.
Yes.
And even Einstein took time to space out. And that guy would just sit in a chair and daydream, and that was part of his process, and there's nothing wrong with that. Look what he achieved.
This is a part that I struggle with because I have so many different pressures all the time. The idea of the weekends off is like my lifelong goal I've never achieved.
Someday.
But the idea that I'm constantly pushing out ideas, energy, stuff they're taking from me, it's exhausting. And the idea of refueling with that time off to get outside, see something like, for instance, my friend saw a tree full of, I think they were turkey vultures, but just the image that she saw out there was giving back to her to go home and create a piece about that. Yeah. So I firmly believe in it. I just cannot seem to practice that. But that's the help of a baby, is that all I want to do is get her out there to see it how she sees it. Yeah. And I want to see it again.
Right.
So I hope that comes back in more into my work and my life.
Definitely, with the inclusion of a new life in your life. It makes you feel new, incredibly exhausted, but new. And it gives you the ability to see things in a different way because you are facilitating.
Fresh eyes.
Yes. That first time for everything experience is everything.
It's really magical and beautiful, and it's juicy. It's inspirational. I have one last thought on the time by yourself, time on your own.
Yes, please.
Thanks. I was volunteering in Africa for a while. I went into an orphanage outside of Cape Town, Hialeah, and I was there with about 6 other kids my age, and we'd work all day with these orphans, and it was hard stuff. And at night they'd be like, okay, we go back to our little tiny room. We eat our little snacks that we brought in because we couldn't leave that area for days. And everyone would just go to bed. And every night I couldn't believe that after they were experiencing like such a intense situation, that the way they kind of dealt with that by just, see, I'm exhausted, I'm going to bed. And I would stay up and write every night, half the night, about am I doing enough? Is there more? Am I supposed to be more? There was so much pull there, and I would have never found the voice in my head if I hadn't created that space
for questioning,
to have some time to myself, to really think about my life and my day and what I was going through. And so I wish we all did that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to fit it in because we're tired.
We're tired, and I don't know. I think it takes so much time to spend time with your thoughts.
It does. And writing is tiring sometimes.
And right. And then there's that instant gratification culture we live in. And so I don't know. I think that, again, a lot of the time our theme comes back to, the slowness of creation, what it can kind of foster within you. And I think that it happens with everybody. It's like taking a walk in the woods, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. You put it off, you finally do it. And the only thing you're thinking when you're coming away from that is, I should be doing that more. It always happens that way. And it happens that way with creativity, with getting in touch with nature, and even spending time by yourself. Because I think the more you do it, the more gratifying it becomes. But it's hard. It's a challenge. And it just depends on your own life circumstance and how much you feel you can really carve that time out.
Exactly.
But it is still important.
Yes.
And then the other thing that Amy likes to say is that dreamers don't sleep, and clearly they can't sleep because they have to make art. And one of the biggest dreamers I know is a sleep deprived artist in Jackson Hole.
Dreamers don't sleep. I was just like the idea of this dreamer being so flighty and head in the clouds and nothing happening. I just never known anything to be that way.
Right.
So when I'm not, instead of sleeping, basically, I'm executing the dream.
Yes, that's right.
And it takes all of that, the time and the planning and the step-by-step baby steps to the goal, and seeing the end goal and working backwards. And that's what I'm doing all night.
All the time.
I might take a moment and take a little prayer and a little wish here and there too. A little time to myself.
Yeah.
But
that's perfect.
I do believe in that we are all put here with some heavy feelings in our hearts to follow things, become things, support things, see things. And there's really no excuse for not listening to those voices. That's who you are. So I really believe that the dream is in all of us, and we really were put here, and it was put in us to follow.
Yeah. And tune into to kind of that natural inclination, right? To lean into it instead of resisting. And and who knows what could happen.
Yes. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I agree. All right,
I have a book in front of me.
Yeah, that's why she's an author now. What? How'd that happen?
Thanks, Jenn. This is my editor.
Oh, yeah. I did edit the book.
So
thanks, Amy, for the opportunity.
Team effort on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenn.
And we're both just so excited about how the community is receiving the book.
Yeah,
and,
it's been awesome.
I'm going to do a little plug. You can find the book at the National Museum of Wildlife Art, as well as Ringholz Studios and other locations around the Teton neighborhood.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you. All right, lady. Well, I guess I'll see you at work.
I'll see you at work. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Go take a nap.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
Advanced Pretend is a podcast produced by 9 Stories Creative Podcast Studios, created by Jenn Ryan, executive produced and edited by Matt Jackson. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.